Kaspa holders, I think we're at a point right now where the whales might be trying to trick us and trick us into making moves that we might not otherwise normally make, just out of both fear, boredom, impatience, all of this type of stuff. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today in more detail and explain what we're seeing and why we might be seeing it. So let's go on ahead and we'll dive right in. First off, I want to take a look at the crypto bubble chart, and we can see here on the day, everything looking pretty negative. And this is kind of what we've seen over the past couple weeks and then month as well. So if we look at the week, we can see here a lot of things negative, only a handful of items here in the green. Most everything else is sitting negative on the week. And then if we look at the month, even more so. I mean, we're seeing a couple of things here and there being a little green, but the majority of what we are seeing here is quite red, particularly from a lot of these larger coins as well. So it's a pretty difficult spot in the market for most altcoins, I would say right now. There's a lot of ones that we talk about on the channel quite frequently. We've got Sui, we've got Pi, we've got Onda, we've got Solana, we've got Kaspa, of course, right here down almost 40% in the last month. We've got Say, I mean, we've got a whole bunch of others here that are not looking particularly great. And so I think it's important to understand that this is not something that is limited to just Kaspa. We can see that Kaspa is kind of taking the biggest hit of kind of most of the coins here. We have a couple others that are down a little bit more than Kaspa, but Kaspa I would say is kind of on the leading end of in terms of how the price has been doing in terms of like moving to the downside, which is not necessarily a great thing. If we do take a look at the Kaspa chart, we can kind of see exactly that. I mean, we were doing a little, things were looking pretty good. We were kind of doing a little bit of an uptrend here. We did hit up to the 13-cent range, and we are now down almost 50% from that point that we hit back even in just the 12th of May. So less than a month ago, we've come down almost 50%. And I think there's a lot of reasons as to why this is. I think the biggest reason is because of the conflict in the Middle East. That, of course, is not a particularly great thing, particularly for Kaspa, just because so many of their developers are Israeli and do kind of live in Israel. So that is kind of a obviously added risk to an already risky asset. And so that is something why I think we're seeing such a strong sell-off here. And I think that's going to add a little bit, of a silver lining potentially if you are looking to speculate. Now we'll talk about that here in a second, but at least for right now, while we're focusing on the chart, we can see that we are continuing to push lower and lower. The Bollinger Bands continue to move lower. We're kind of pushing the bottom of them constantly. And we are also seeing that the RSI is not quite oversold at all yet, but it does kind of continue to make lower lows as we continue to go further down. So this is something where, potentially we can start to see this start to turn around a little bit just because we haven't actually gotten to fully oversold. Price strength has been holding up a little bit, even though the price itself has been falling quite dramatically. So we'll have to take a look at that and kind of see how things adjust over the next little while. But things have been, there's no two ways about it, right? Things have been pretty difficult for Kaspa. We're seeing a lot of difficulty from this coin, particularly as it relates to price. Now, as I mentioned just recently, with this being a potential silver lining, is because if we do see things get worked out within the Middle East, I do think that this could be something that would be very, very beneficial for Kaspa. And I would imagine kind of conversely, we would see Kaspa have an equally disproportionate upside as it works to catch back up to kind of where it was before. So that's kind of my opinion. I think if we start to see things in the Middle East die down, then we will actually see some really, really strong and nice moves from Kaspa. But right now, of course, things not looking particularly great. So if you are, kind of interested in taking a closer look at Kaspa, maybe even doing some trading of Kaspa, whether that's longing, shorting, any of that type of thing, acquiring spot, any of that type of stuff, feel free to use my link in the description below to BTCC. BTCC is offering that 10% deposit bonus on first-time deposits, which is a really, really good deal. They also do have up to $10,055 in deposit and volume bonuses. So really, really good deal if you are looking for a new place to trade. They've got a lot of essentially bonuses and options to help incentivize you to come and give them a try. So give them a try, see what you think. Overall, you can see they do trade Kaspa as well as like 300 or 400 other options. They do also do tokenized assets or tokenized securities, which is really cool as well, if that is something that you do find interesting. So moving along, let's take a look at what we are seeing right now. And the biggest thing kind of before we get into this, I guess I should preface this with, we are in a spot where altcoins are not favored. So, when things go up, it's probably going to be a little bit. And when things go down, it's probably going to be a lot of it, just because we aren't in an altcoin season quite yet. And we can see this exactly right here if we take a look at the bull market peak indicators. We've talked about, I think, basically all of these indicators before on the channel, but you can see here, this is the bull market peak indicators, essentially trying to help people sell at the top. There's 30 different indicators. We've hit 0 of them. We are currently in a 100% hold situation. You can see none of these have actually been hit. They're all showing big red X's, and you can see we're not even really close to many of these. So the Bitcoin AHR 999 index, we're at 1. Should be 4 or greater for it to hit the sell button, or whatever you want to call it. The Pi cycle top, we're at 104,000. The reference currently is 167. We have not even gotten close to that. We haven't even gotten within $50,000, or 33% of this at this point in time. The Puel multiple is about half. Bitcoin rainbow chart is about 60% of where it should be. ETF net outflows should be about 10% of where it should be. We're seeing the ETF to Bitcoin ratio needs to be less than 3.5%. We are seeing it almost double. Hopefully, I won't go through all of them, but you can see this is we're not at all in a spot where we are talking about having any sort of top checks or anything like that. Now, of course, maybe this cycle is different. Maybe this time's different. All this type of good stuff. Maybe. Right? But at least historically, based on everything we've seen in the past and everything we've seen throughout history, we are not even close. It's not even we're not even close. We are 0 for 30 at this point in time. So I think that's what we got to see when we're looking at things like Kaspa. When the price of Kaspa continues to go down and it continues to bleed and continues to bleed and continues to bleed, this is because we are not in an alt-friendly environment. It's a Bitcoin-friendly environment and a Bitcoin-friendly environment only. And so what we're seeing right now is we just have to be patient. We have to wait. If you are in the position you can DCA if you've decided that that's something that makes sense for you. Of course, I'm not a financial advisor. You do need to make your own decisions because there's so much more that goes into that decision than just, do I have money or not, right? Maybe it's position sizing, maybe it's risk tolerance, maybe it's, there's a whole bunch of different stuff, short-term liquidity needs. There's a lot of different things that goes into, making these types of financial decisions, which is why you need to make your own. And I cannot recommend or advise you on any of that just because I don't know your personal situation. So, but what we can see kind of moving back to where or the state of Kaspa and the state of where we're at is we're not really seeing anything too inspiring happen. If we go back and we look at the crypto fear and greed index, we can see we're sitting right at around neutral, nothing really too positive, nothing really too negative. I think this is kind of the point we were seeing back in this right here in this July, August, September. We were sitting in a lot of neutral here, a decent bit of fear as well, but we're sitting in a lot of neutral. And if any of you remember, basically from June to October, alts were just getting absolutely smashed. And the only reason it felt like that we were sitting in neutral is because Bitcoin was holding up and performing quite well. I think we're seeing a similar situation right now where Bitcoin's holding up and performing okay, but alts are not really at all. They continue to bleed and continue to have a little bit of some difficulties. This is generally what happens in a Bitcoin type of season. So if we look at the total to market cap, we've been talking about this more and more frequently because I do think it helps people provide context within altcoins generally, whether you like Kaspa, whether you like Ethereum, whether you like ICP, whether you like Pi, whatever coin that you happen to like, and this is more of a objective measure. So you can say, oh, well, Kaspa hasn't hit all-time highs yet. Okay, sure. But if this is pushing all-time highs and Kaspa is sitting near its lows, then maybe that could be a pretty good indication that Kaspa might be time to sell and cut loose and try and find a different crypto that's performing a little bit better. This is what we're seeing here. So right now we're kind of pinched between this liquidity zone and we haven't really moved above or below. We are actually pushing kind of towards the bottom here. We can hope that this would maybe give us a little bit of a bounce and we could take a move back to the upside, but it also could mean that we're going to continue to sell off and find new lows like we saw back here in March and April. That is also a possibility. Now, if we were to move back to the upside, there's kind of the second piece, which we move into this upper stage of being kind of liquidity locked, right? We can see here we've got that kind of low the low range between like the 1.26 and the 1.34 range. And then we have the high range between about 1.63 and 1.7. Again, if we break above this, I've got the circle here. If we break above this, this is a new all-time high for altcoins. This would be majorly important for the essentially facilitation of an alt season. We're not going to get an alt season if we are not breaking through all-time highs on the total to market cap. So until anything like this happens, I don't think that we can expect too many exciting things from altcoins, just because there's not that flexibility there, right? And so I think I would say pay very, very close attention to where we're sitting at on the total to market cap, and that might give you a little bit of a better indication of where we could be going on in the future. Of course, sometimes the fear and greed index helps. Sometimes, looking at individual altcoins helps, but the total to is an aggregation of everything, overperformers and underperformers. So if you look at something like that, I think you can use that as a better gauge, despite and maybe not getting blinded by your convictions in specific altcoins. Now, relating to Kaspa specifically, we can see that the altcoin index, or the total to, like essentially we'll call it the altcoin index, but the total to is kind of just bouncing around. It's not really doing a whole lot. We are seeing Kaspa bleed disproportionately to that. Now, I think we know why that is, which means there's kind of two angles here. One, Kaspa is currently underperforming the rest of the alt market, which we kind of could tell that by the crypto bubbles, but also that means they could potentially be positioned for upside or outsized gains if we see the resolution within the Middle East resolve itself. Now, I think that would be very good things, but that right now, at least, it is priced in that there is an additional layer of risk for holding Kaspa, just because so many of the team, or so many of the team members are based in Israel. So that is an important thing to consider, and that is something that we just need to make sure that we're understanding and we have that extra level of risk, at least identified or notified for ourselves. Now, we aren't seeing altcoins do anything too crazy. I think right now, it's kind of like what we've been in over the past probably 2 years at this point. It's a little bit of just kind of, grinding away, buy low, sell high type of situation. We can kind of see local points at which this would be, but all of us, I think, are kind of waiting for the big one, so to speak. And that does not appear to be anywhere close at hand. So that's kind of just where we're at. You got to be patient. You got to wait for the turns of the markets. Don't let the whales shake you out by some price movements, anything like that. Just make sure that you're essentially, understand what you hold. If you have conviction in what you hold, then price doesn't really matter in the short term, at least in my opinion. Now, hopefully you did find the information in this video useful. If you did, a like and a subscribe really, really does help me out. It helps me continue to grow the channel and reach more people and all that type of good stuff. Also, I did open the Discord channel that I have. It is free now, so if you want, go check that in the link in the description below. It will take you to Patreon. You can sign up for free there. It's kind of what I'm doing to hopefully kind of combat bots and scammers and all that type of stuff. So if you are interested, feel free to check that link in the description. And also, if you have any comments, thoughts, feelings, whatever, just drop those in the comment section as well. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything that you want me to see, that'd be a great way to do so. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.